Jon Anik and Kenny Florian podcast. Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
I f***ing love them. I can't get enough of them.
Let's hear that Buster next.
Big jab there from Duffy, and Frank Mir is hurt now. Down goes Duffy, out cold. Frank Mir does it again. Rock'em sock'em robots here. Oh my goodness. Hyperbole.
There are a couple of absolutely self-involved bullshit artists.
Here are your hosts, Jon Anik and Kenny Florian.
Headshot, bang.
I mean, if you're not a UFC fan, what exactly were you doing Saturday night that was more fun than UFC 316? Ken Flo's in Turkey on a Monday. Great to be with you. Monday, the 9th of June, the year's 2025. It's episode 554 of the Anik and Florian podcast. Today's episode is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. And Ken Flo's crown's going to look delicious here in about 48 hours. My man, what we doing there in Istanbul, Turkey? Is that where you are, in Istanbul?
I am. I'm in Istanbul. On Saturday night, I was on a flight, dude, dealing with some Wi-Fi issues, trying to watch the fights. I was a little stressing out a little bit. But, man, I enjoyed myself. It was awesome. Getting over here, gonna get some hair on the front of my head.
Well, it's very exciting.
Yeah. Flight is... Got me?
So I'm catching a little delay. We did a Wi-Fi test about 30 minutes ago. And, of course, as our producer says in the private chat, it tanks when we go live. But we're glad you have been able to watch all of the fights at this point in time. We're very excited about all you have coming up over the next few days. Lot to get into today. Coming up 30 minutes from now, live here on the DraftKings YouTube channel, we will be joined by the undisputed UFC bantamweight champion, Merab Dvalishvili. We're going to obviously talk about this man extensively over the course of the next 2 hours today. Longo joins prior to that, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. We will also be joined by two other UFC 316 winners, Mario Bautista. Time prevented him from getting a microphone on pay-per-view. He gets one today on the Anik and Florian podcast. We will also be joined by Joshua Van, the budding flyweight contender, who is doing remarkable things at 23 years of age. So a lot of business to attend to today. And as we always say, the 14 pay-per-view recaps are the episodes that we are most excited to do. And we just hope that Ken Flo's Wi-Fi holds up, but it seems like it's pretty good right now. Let's get into it. Headlines brought to you by Cuervo. Now's a good time to enjoy the tequila that invented tequila. Ken Flo, the undisputed UFC bantamweight champion of the world, is Merab Dvalishvili. Wins the belt September 2024. He has now twice defended it successfully. First, Umar Nurmagomedov in a potential fight of the year, and now he submits Sean O'Malley with a north-south choke or ninja choke or machine choke, whatever you call it, we will defer to. But Merab Dvalishvili is the fucking man. All right, so I can do a fucking solo show, Cody. I'm not hearing Kenny, so maybe he can refresh and get on out of here, and I will wax poetic.
Yeah,
There he is. I just don't want to make it completely unlistenable for these people. So a lot of people felt as though this fight was going to be different. The rematch between Sean O'Malley and Merab Dvalishvili, they felt that maybe it would be a little bit more competitive than the first meeting. Now, Daniel Cormier would suggest to you that the first meeting wasn't particularly close, even if it was a 48-47 score. Merab's rounds in the Sphere fight were more dominant than Sean's, even if it was a 48-47. But so much was made of these wholesale changes for Sean O'Malley. Not going on social media, not smoking cannabis, void of distraction, torn labrum in the hip has been surgically repaired, surgery scheduled even before he fought Merab at Sphere. All these different things, right? And the result was even more one-sided, more decisive. You get a finish here. John Wood, my coach of the year for 2025, and I decide these things sometimes in June. So prophetic with his words pre-fight in terms of, you know, I guess in a broad sense, I would just say turning some of that fun into a finish. And Merab Dvalishvili had buckets of fun on Saturday night, but he vowed not to kiss the man or maybe showboat as much. And didn't take long for him to have that one potential moment to finish, and locks up a tremendous choke to get a finish and add to his already Hall of Fame legacy. Ken Flo, your thoughts on Merab?
Yeah, it was a beautiful ninja choke that he ended up finishing from the north-south position. Merab is an absolute animal. And again, it's like, how do you prepare for someone like that who is going to throw so many unorthodox techniques your way and is going to be relentless with how he feints, how he throws his punches, and how he gets in on those legs? So it was really tough for O'Malley, who just really could not adjust enough throughout that fight and to come to that pressure yet again. Merab did what I thought he was going to do, which was be even more comfortable in this rematch, and he executed beautifully.
So when a given fighter's title shot comes, it can come against a champion from any different style, right? But when Sean O'Malley was the champion, Kenny, there were a lot of bantamweight contenders who were salivating at the possibility of fighting him because they felt like stylistically it was a good matchup, right? Dominic Cruz felt like Merab would have been a great matchup for him. I'm not sure how many bantamweights actually feel like Dvalishvili is a good matchup for them at this point in time, right? Dricus du Plessis, a middleweight champion. A lot of people felt like the guy was maybe beatable. Well, best of luck, right? So if you, Kenny Florian, as a guy who's fought for a belt 3 times in the UFC, arrive at the title shot and Merab's the champion, right? What are you doing to beat him? Because I even think Corey Sandhagen, as he hits his honeymoon in Hawaii, is thinking like, fuck, man.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough matchup for anyone in that division. I think if there's anyone who has a great shot, it's probably Umar Nurmagomedov, just based on his wrestling chops. However, even he had trouble. I think that Merab is the Khabib Nurmagomedov of the 135-pound division. He continues to improve. His striking continues to get better. He's getting more experience. He's getting more confidence. And I've said this before, but all of those fights which led him getting that title shot has only made him tougher. He is anti-fragile as it gets. And I don't know, man, you're going to have to really get fresh training partners who can wrestle their ass off, who can push you. But you basically have to split each 5-minute round with 2.5 minutes. Have a fresh guy every 2.5 minutes coming at you, throwing a bunch of crazy shit, trying to take you down. That's what you got to deal with if you want to have any chance of beating someone like Merab Dvalishvili.
Sean O'Malley got outboxed. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, as far as the striking goes,
he
Kenny,
did.
Yeah.
He did, because a couple things. First of all, he was so worried about the takedowns that he was, trying to keep those hands low, trying to stop the takedown so much. And then he was getting hit. And then when he kept his hands high, Merab was getting in on those legs. So he was really in a big-time dilemma. The other thing is, I think O'Malley was standing up a little bit too tall. He was standing up tall so he could move, so he could be on his bike and have the opportunity to be mobile. But the problem is, because he was upright a little bit, it was Merab that was landing a lot of those overhand rights and combinations off of Sean's striking. So Sean was actually getting countered, which actually just made it that much worse for O'Malley. So Merab's at the top of his game. Now, he's not the best, most technical striker by any means necessary, but he's effective, and that's what counts. When you're talking about L's and W's in this game, it's all about you being effective, and Merab was just more effective than O'Malley, despite not being as good of a striker on paper.
And it's a fight at the end of the day. It is a fight. In terms of Sean O'Malley's approach, a lot of lateral movement, maybe not as much forward motion as some talking heads and his fellow fighters would like, right? Not that they're suggestive that he should stand on a napkin in the center of the octagon, but I did talk as a talking head on the front end of this fight about him maybe taking more chances. And I know even Corey Sandhagen intimated after this fight that he sort of expected Sean O'Malley to do a little bit more of that. Any thoughts on O'Malley's approach, as short as the fight maybe was?
Yeah, I mean, when we did the breakdown, I thought O'Malley probably should have moved forward. I think that's when he found the most success in that first fight. Now, you can't just come forward for the sake of coming forward. You do have to do it behind your jab or behind some long-range weapons to establish that range and push Merab to the outside. But we really didn't see that stalking like nature from him. I was expecting a little bit more of that. And then once Merab established himself, Merab just started backing him up, and O'Malley just seemed to be lost and out of his rhythm in that fight. Even in round 2, where he was a little more successful, it was still Merab kind of leading the dance, pushing him backwards. And I don't think O'Malley is as comfortable against a high-level grappler, as he has been going backwards against some really high-level strikers. So it was tough. It was a really tough approach for him. That just allows Merab in the game way too much, in my opinion.
There are so many different angles on both of these athletes in the main event, right? And we probably deserve to spend 45 minutes or so on Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes and everything else, right? But as far as Merab Dvalishvili and there not being any comps for him in mixed martial arts, and I said off the top of the pay-per-view, even his teammates, right? His new teammate, Gable Stevenson, sort of wondering aloud if Merab is a regular human being, right? There are Khabib Nurmagomedov parallels to be drawn, but just in terms of the overall pace and pressure and offense in your face, right? Corey Sandhagen's wrestling has improved leaps and bounds. And I think for a lot of us, it would be either Umar Nurmagomedov or Corey Sandhagen would be the guy that we would send in there in terms of the guys in the division right now to try to have somebody beat Merab Dvalishvili, right? Is Corey the guy for you that can get it done? And do you think maybe even as high as his fight IQ is that he's going to have to take some risks that, could result in him getting knocked out?
It's quite possible. I think that as far as the guy who doesn't have a wrestling background, I give him the best shot just based on his overall grappling skills. He has some very unusual techniques that he can apply against someone like Merab to maybe counter or attack on the counter when it comes to the submission game, just because of his exposure to guys like Ryan Hall, who has a very funky style and it can throw you off. So I think he's going to need every bit of that for sure. And his length sometimes can be a disadvantage. We saw that against O'Malley, where because you are so tall, it just allows Merab to get in on those legs. Now, in regards to the aggression aspect or being, taking risks, I think that knee down the middle, that flying knee down the middle is going to have to be approached at some point against Merab.
Yeah. Really, really well laid out. I do think this could be a fight in which that Ryan Hall connection ends up being a big thing for Corey Sandhagen. So a non-athlete like me sometimes talks in simplistic terms, right? But what about getting in triathlon type shape? I wonder what the Iron Lung Paul Felder would have to say about this, because even though, as Sean O'Malley said, right, an assault bike isn't going to get you in the shape to handle Merab. It's got to be wrestling. But Paul Felder came off the couch and went 5 rounds with Rafael Dos Anjos and cut 25 pounds in a blink, right? And he was able to withstand because he was essentially training for triathlon. So, I mean, if you're Corey Sandhagen, right, one of the hardest workers in the sport, right, he's running as we speak during his honeymoon in Hawaii, right? I know I probably sound like an amateur, but aren't you changing? Aren't you trying to get in the best possible shape of your life and really eliminating sugar and just literally, I don't know, man. At this point, I think it would look to even Corey Sandhagen like a really daunting task to beat this guy doing what we've been doing in 12 weeks' time.
John, I don't think anybody has the answer just because no one has had the answer to deal with someone like a Merab Dvalishvili. I think certainly it's going to have to involve wrestling pressure and wrestling efficiency. However, I think that maybe even more important than the physical stress, I guess, or the physical conditioning might be the actual stress of having someone pressure you like that nonstop, of having you start in terrible positions and just putting an insane amount of stress on your body when it comes to your sparring. It's like, I'd maybe start rounds with Corey, be like, all right, dude, you're going to be on all fours, someone pounding away at you, trying to take your back and just pinning you up against the cage. That's where you're going to start every couple of minutes. Sorry, that this is the way it's going to go, man. And just having him try to get back to his feet, just doing a lot of unusual things that are very frustrating, because in order to deal with the physical stress, you're going to have to deal with the mental stress as well. Because I think a lot of people get tired from that mental stress of just having a Wolverine on you every 5 seconds.
Great point. Gosh, you're on fire in Turkey. Maybe you should do the show from Turkey every time if we can shore up the Wi-Fi. But even after the first 5 minutes, Kenny, there was a big exhale from Sean O'Malley and almost a wide-eyed look, and he realized success in the first round. And
Right.
if I'm reading body language and facial stuff, it's like, man, like, geez, man. And he's getting better, right? And it's like John Wood asks for a finish. He goes out and fucking gets one, you know? Anything for us before we sort of move to a different talking point in terms of the submission and the choke and the quick tap from Sean O'Malley? The pressure?
Yeah, I think, first of all, it was beautifully applied. I think at the very end, it seemed like more of a crank. Now, I don't want to speculate on, what O'Malley was feeling necessarily. First of all, it can feel like your neck is going to break. It could also have felt like it's not really choking me, but this might also be an excuse for me to get the hell away from this guy who's been pressuring me. Yeah, this man. So Merab is a beast, and whether it was an actual, crank of the neck or a choke, or whether it was O'Malley giving up ahead of time, I don't know. But I thought from the front, when O'Malley was on all fours, it was really, really tight. So he might have been dealing with the choke for a while, but also it could feel like your neck is going to break if it's at the right angle. So I'm not sure exactly what those things were, but I don't think Merab's pressure, hurt either throughout that fight.
We will hopefully get a chance in about a quarter of an hour to talk to Merab Dvalishvili, and we can ask him a little bit about it. But John Wood certainly looking for more application of submissions in training, and the man gets it done. And all indications are it's going to be Corey Sandhagen. And I had a little bit of a private text with him to try to sort of fire him up. And he was like, can you imagine, after everything, the way it was laid out, if I actually didn't get the shot at this point in time? And I started writing him back to say, bro, it's happening now. Corey Sandhagen's the number one contender. And even Dana White, who shares fan enthusiasm for a rematch between Merab Dvalishvili and Umar Nurmagomedov, was probed about it at the post-fight press conference. Oh, before Corey? He said absolutely not. So Corey Sandhagen is going to be next. And to have a champion like Merab, Kenny, who is going to put this belt on the line every 3 months, it is a huge luxury. They had it with Volkanovski, and I guess you could say they have it with Volk again because he's trying to get back in there. Sometimes there are circumstances in the fight game that prevent champions from fighting every 3 months. But, dude, it's June 9th. Merab's trying to defend this belt 4 times in 2025. And a lot of people are saying Madison Square Garden. I mean, we might even get it prior to that. The UFC needs pay-per-view headliners. Just guys, a promoter's dream. And certainly prior to this fight, a lot of people would have said stylistically he ain't that. So,
yeah, I'm curious to see whether he can keep it up year after year after year. But if there's one guy who actually can, it is Merab Dvalishvili. The guy doesn't stop. And again, as a fighter, you do want to maximize your ability to make money. And he's on one, man. His momentum is insane.
All right, one day the UFC Hall of Fame is going to come calling for Ray Longo, who just continues to realize greatness in UFC corners, one of the best of all time. And my gosh, you look so good today. Like, your handsomeness just knows no bounds. You're like Benjamin Button agent in reverse. Congratulations, Raymond. Nothing makes us happier than seeing you win these championship fights. And you and John Wood celebrating together. It seems like there's a real kinship there. Congratulations, buddy.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. And listening to you guys talk, he's a promoter's dream. He's a trainer's dream. He's a friend's dream. He's just a really good fucking dude, man. I think people are starting to realize that. And look, he came out of that fight unmarked, so that's less than what he's doing in a normal day of sparring. Because that was less than what he did with Aljo
before the fight,
for the shakeout and for the freaking locker room. I'm telling you, that's the only thing that I think could do something with Merab is that he gets injured before the fight. He's crazy, but the shit with Aljo was definitely tougher than the fight. So he's going to do. He could fight like that. I'm going to say 12 times a year. He'll just go. He'll just continue his training. He's not. He's a different cat, man. He's just totally different.
Yeah, the man is unbreakable. Ray, what's been the biggest change for you seeing him get ready for these fights, whether it's backstage and going out and executing, from his first UFC fight to what you saw on Saturday night? What's been that biggest change?
I think the biggest change with everything, because obviously I'm not a part of the cast, but the backstage stuff has been going on, forever. He's nothing that hasn't changed. What's changed is his confidence. This guy is a perfect example of the saying, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I mean, they tried to kill him, and that's the difference in this fight. They tried to kill him with look at his resume, and he just get more confident. But Merab, he's thinking. He is a little more cerebral than you think. Not like cerebral like in the details, but cerebral in thinking about the fight and what it means and all that stuff. But it didn't kill him, and now they got a problem. Whereas the other guy, stupid talented guy. I'm not knocking him off. Look, I could watch that guy hit pads every day. Right. You know what I mean? But when you're gifted shit the way he was, and you start to believe in it, and then you really have to fight somebody, it's a major problem. Like when I get my guys coming up, even like in the Ring of Combat back in the day, they all had tough fights. They weren't going to get to the UFC without a tough fight. Who the hell wants that? Then you find out, at the wrong time. You know what I mean? You want to find out before they make that big walk. And O'Malley obviously is super talented, but they did give him guys that are just going to stand in front of him, that weren't grapplers, that play into his game. And now you got a guy who's his wrestling, his MMA wrestling is just off the charts. And now what do? You're going to correct that in a couple of months, or you think you're going to bring Israel out of Sonya? Not a knock to Israel, but you're starting to do things that appear to make you look better, but they're not doing anything. There was an easy recipe for him. I don't know if they followed it, but that's the issue. I think that he was given certain things that just they're not making you better. They might be making people money. But are you growing as a fighter? Is each fight testing you in a different area that you weren't tested before? I mean, look at the guys like Merab. Even though O'Malley's striking is very different, he did have to go in there with Jose Aldo. You know what I mean? And, look, Merab didn't get Jose Aldo down. He beat him against the cage, but, so it's not like he's unstoppable. You can't stop him. There's guys that have stopped his takedowns. They just can't do anything else. Then he moves to plan B.
Right.
So but to answer your first question, it's confidence. That's what I see. I see a guy that from his first fight to now is just a more confident guy. He always, like smart confidence, because he always had the desire to fight. You could see the Frankie Science fight. He was like the fucking Mad Hatter. Yeah. And I'm telling you, I'm saying this kid, in my mind, Kenny is 15-0. He 100% didn't lose the Science fight, and he didn't lose the Simone fight. And that was when he was a crazy person, jumping all over the place. Now he's relaxed, right? He's taking his time. His belief in himself can't be any higher. How can you listen when you're taking tough fights and that? Think of the confidence it gives you. You know what I mean?
So,
like if I would spar with a world champion kickboxer, then I go in with a normal guy. I'm going, well, I just spar. I mean, I got the experience with him. What is this guy going to do? And that's kind of what happened with him. He's got experience with a lot of different good guys.
Yeah. So there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, you don't even need us today. You just fucking ripped for 180 seconds. So I would at least like to address the Izzy thing, because that is really neither here nor there. He just sort of stopped in town. I do think Sean O'Malley did the right work, but your suggestion that O'Malley was manicured a little bit, it's fair, right? It's absolutely fair. He was not tested. Right.
I'm not knocking anybody.
He was not tested in the ways, say, a Dominic Cruz was on route to becoming the world champion, right? So we shouldn't necessarily be surprised, right? But I think the story is more that you have been a high-level mixed martial arts coach for a long time. And any of us, I've been covering the sport almost 20 years, since 2006, and I've never seen anything like Merab Dvalishvili. We used to joke that he should be opened up at time of his passing and be studied for science. And now I kind of feel like it actually needs to happen. And he says, no, it's just hard work. But dude, the way he's been hardened, the way his will has been forged, I feel like Corey Sandhagen's honeymoon is ruined.
No, I don't know about that, but
I just think mentally the challenge of preparing for someone like Merab is very daunting. I mean, I know that he'll
Yeah.
compartmentalize
I think
his honeymoon in the right way.
I think Corey Sandhagen's going to be a tougher fight than people think. I always like Corey from the beginning, and I think he's a great guy. I think he stands for the right stuff. But look, he's got to figure out a way to stop this guy, which is not going to, at this point, he's just like, again, if you don't separate him from consciousness, he's not stopping. He wasn't even stopping when Simone was choking the life out of him.
Well,
he was
right.
still moving his legs. Like, who the hell is doing that?
So
who the fuck is doing that?
I think for a lot of us, and Aljamain Sterling doesn't count, but if we had to send one bantamweight in there to try to beat Kayla Harrison, it would probably have been Juliana Pena or Ketlin Vieira. If we have to send one bantamweight in there to beat Merab, I think a lot of us would send Corey Sandhagen in there or Umar Nurmagomedov in there, right? But what would you say to people who have suggested that a lot of the hard work and challenging matchups for Merab at 135 pounds are actually now in the rearview mirror, right?
Yeah.
The Umar rematch may come around, but Sean O'Malley is not easy to beat. That's a hard
100%.
matchup, and maybe he hasn't fought the right fight because Merab is just so difficult. Like, I thought Sean O'Malley after the first 5 minutes, Ray, his inner monologue was like, fuck, man, here we go again.
Yeah. I'd love to watch the fight back, because I'll tell you where I was coming from at the beginning. I thought, just because of all their antics, when the other guy's screaming out Merab's name, it's all like, there's a lot of parlor tricks, you know what I mean? Like, that's why I said, like, you asked me, I don't care. I don't care. They have no bearing on me. A lot of people get pissed off. Tim could call out whatever he wants to call.
Right.
I think it's all fair game, to be honest with you. But when you're doing stuff like that, you're prioritizing some bullshit over some substance. That's the way I look at it. Like, if you got to come down to that, well, you got to call the guy's name out, you think that's going to help your guy? Right,
well, and in the co-main event, I'll tell you from my vantage point, Izzy Martinez, a new addition to the Juliana Pena corner. He replaced Bilal Muhammad for this fight.
Oh,
After
wow.
round one, he said to Julie, don't pay attention to what I'm saying. I'm just trying to fuck with Kayla and bark out these commands. They got nothing to do with you. And I'm thinking, man,
Yeah. So how does that work out? Like, again, you've seen it with that. You got a beast in front of you. You think you're going to start barking out shit?
It's trying to mess with her?
It's going to affect Kayla Harrison, who's an Olympic gold medalist. Really? She's been through the ringer already.
So,
and John, when you said, who do you send in for Kayla Harrison? What bantamweight? I thought you were going to say Merab. I thought that's where you were going. I go, wow.
I sort of sidestepped because leading into the Harrison Pena fight, I was sort of banging the drum that, hey, a lot of people would send Juliana Pena in there to beat Kayla if Amanda Nunes is not available because she's just an absolute dog, even though skill for skill, they don't see it. I do think a lot of people would send Corey Sandhagen in there. And I do think that in a lot of respects, Corey is a mental giant. So I think that he'll handle a lot of this challenge pretty well. But, John Wood is bullish in terms of his confidence for this Sandhagen fight. And I understand why. I've never seen anything like what we are seeing, and his ability to have fun in fight is systematically insane.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, and John should be, he should be bullish on Merab, because, like, again, he is a coach's dream. Like, he gives you the confidence to even coach better, because he's so good at what he's doing. And I'll tell you, the beautiful thing when we're up, win, lose, or draw, he's so grounded, and he's got such humility that that's not going to even matter to him.
Yeah,
he's having the time of his life. If I know him the way I think I know him, this is icing on the cake at this point, man. He's booking, and he's the example of he really is an example of the American dream. And you got to love the guy. He does the right thing by everybody, and he'll always be that guy because of the way he was brought up.
So you mentioned that that Merab doesn't have a scratch on him, right?
I don't think
Sean O'Malley, no, he doesn't. Merab literally looks like he could compete.
Yeah. Oh no, he'd go right back
actually in there. This weekend, right? It's only the weight, right? Like, if there was if they were going to pay him to fight for the featherweight title this weekend, he'd probably do it. Absolutely. Yeah. So Sean O'Malley did have scratches on him, right? He got busted up in this fight as long as it lasted. I'm curious what you felt about Sean O'Malley's approach. There's some people who are levying criticism at Sean, suggesting just too much backward motion, lateral motion. should have been more of the stand on a napkin approach. And I know easier said than done. I'm just curious, as a striking guy yourself, what you thought of O'Malley's approach.
Look, what I was worried about in the fight was that he was going to kind of fight off his back foot and try to outpoint him. I thought those guys, like those type of guys, they're going to go back and look at a close round and go, man, if we could have just stayed on our feet another 40 seconds or did this, we could have stole the round. So there was either two things, and we went through it, and, Jon said he was planned for both of them. He's either going to try to steal it like that, or he is going to go after him and try to knock him out. And I think he chose to do the first one. You know what I mean? And he, I don't know. The approach in the fight, I don't know what his, I'd love to know what he was training, like what he thought was going to be different by how he was trained. And in the fight, he looked like he was trying to do, he had a little success with getting out of a couple of takedowns maybe. And, he went back to the same stuff, the low right hand, probably looking to set up for the overhand. But Merab wasn't happy. He was going to keep moving. He was going to keep the distance until he wanted to shoot, disguise it. And he's getting very good at what he does, man. He's getting very, very good at what he does. Yeah. And he does hit hard. I'm not saying he's the cleanest striker. I think that's still a work in progress. I don't think anybody's going to, disagree with that. But his confidence level, like the guy's like a street fighter. You're not going to like punk him, and he's going to punch you in the face. Like, so it's going to be the same in the fight. I mean, I would think the longer O'Malley could get him to do those exchanges, maybe would have been to his advantage in the first fight. Now you got another you got the guy beat Umar. His confidence just keeps growing. What'd the other guy do? He did nothing. He didn't take a fight. He had a surgery. And, that was the only thing I wanted that, everybody liked. But I don't know if you guys remember when Roy Jones was losing to Tarver. He lost the first fight. And then the second fight, when the ref goes, any questions, Tarver goes to him, you got any excuses this time, Roy? We're good? And I wanted Merab to do that. I got Sean, any surgery scheduled after the fight? Your hip feels good? Let's do it. I really wanted him to do that in the worst way because, just to set the tone for like, I really don't give a fuck what you did or what operation you had, who you brought in. Like, it's just.
No, and I like that hostility a little bit that I'm hearing from you and John Wood and Team Dvalishvili, right? John Wood in his Instagram post putting the word healthy in quotation marks, right? Because it does undercut the champion a little bit. And Sean O'Malley is not of the excuse-making type, right? This didn't come out until 7 months after the fact when he's doing all this media, right? But to have a hip surgery scheduled and to go into competition and the whole narrative over-promising and under-delivering and probably shouldn't have taken the Sphere fight, really, if that was the condition you were dealing with, it ain't going to matter, right? I mean, if these guys fought 10 times at this point in time, it just doesn't look to be a particularly competitive matchup. And I say that as, a friend of Sean's. So,
and with Merab, John, I was like, no fucking around this time. Don't do the fucking,
no
thing. You get that motherfucker down, you make him pay. Like that, like you're at that point, you got to make a statement with the guy. Man, that was it, man. I mean, I just think, he tried to come up with a storyline. I don't know. Look, I hope, what I hope for O'Malley? I hope he doesn't go back to smoking weed. I hope he leads a clean lifestyle. I think the guy's really good, but he's got to really, I don't know what they're doing with him, but I think he's a super talented guy that, you need hard work to really get to the next level.
Listen, Ray, he fought better smoking weed, okay?
Yeah.
Well, that's the other.
That,
well, now he's going to look at that. That's why I say all the things that I don't know. I just think when you start, there's nobody that could save. You can't bring anybody into the corner that's going to really make a difference at this point. I don't think. You know what I mean? Like. I don't know.
Well, this just made Merab look that much better.
Yeah, 100%. It played out well.
That much better. It added to his legend, and it seemed like this was one of those fights that I think just made him that much more popular as well. I mean, the crowd was going nuts for him. That's what it seemed like. He's never been more popular.
He definitely got booed at the beginning.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. What? Right, John? The other guy. I mean, it wasn't even Kenny. It was actually kind of. I don't know.
In the beginning,
talking to Rubenstein about that. My guys just get fucking tortured. We went through the Aljo Yan thing. I mean,
oh my
for the
gosh.
climate in the country that time, for them to be still cheering for Yan over the American guy is just mind-boggling to me. I don't get it. I really don't.
Hey, last laugh Longo's his name, right? Getting the last laugh across the fucking board. So I just can't think, and we do have to get to Kayla Harrison. Merab Dvalishvili scheduled to join us any minute. We do have Joshua Van, by the way, coming up in about 20 minutes. So I will text Danny Rube and see what's going on. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different things that we can talk about. But I can't think of a man nor woman who is more deserving of the fortune. Forget the fame, which is overrated, but the fortune and the financial freedom and everything good that can be done with it for Merab Dvalishvili. It's just absolutely awesome, that he's going to just have this amazing life that he has built with hard work and doing everything the right way. And he's just such an easy human being to root for.
And John, and a kid that's overcome a lot of adversity a couple of times in his career. That's why I think I'll always have a bond with Merab. It could have been over before it started. So, was he one of the guys like a Weidman that walked in like that? No. But was he a hard worker from the day he walked in and the guy you wanted to see succeed?
Yeah.
Because of the way he worked, 1,000,000%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And now he's surpassing everybody, man. It's fucking crazy. It really is just crazy. And I got to, on that note, John, let me just say one thing. When I walked out and I saw Ally Quinter and Weidman in the front row, he was celebrating his son CJ's birthday. Happy birthday, CJ. When I saw those guys there, it really took me back to the old days when each of those guys, Aljo would fight, and Al would fight, Weidman screaming, and vice versa. Everybody, I don't know. I'm sentimental, and that's probably the only shit I got to hang on to these days. But not that these days. I take that back. But you know what I'm saying. But it was a really good feeling, and they got in the octagon. And it was. It just felt like the old. It felt like the old days, and I don't know. I hope everybody could appreciate that, man.
Good to have everybody with us live on the Anik and Florian podcast here on a Monday on YouTube. Thank you all for listening after the fact, wherever you ingest your podcast. Ray Longo Minute is live. Hopefully, we will be joined by the UFC's undisputed bantamweight champion here in the not-too-distant future, but it is early on in Las Vegas. That's why I hesitated in some part to spin it forward to Kayla Harrison, but we got to get there.
No, but wait, Merab's in New York.
Oh, he's in New York. Okay, so no excuse. All right. So, Kayla Harrison, Ken Flo, I'd like to start with you if I could. You covered a lot of her career with the PFL. She is now the undisputed UFC bantamweight champion and has as good a combat sports athlete resume, man or woman, of anyone of all time. And it dovetails with the Merab conversation. Seemingly couldn't happen to a better person.
Kayla is so unique and so gifted herself. I mean, when you think about athleticism and size and strength, and then you combine that with the highest level of martial arts experience when it comes to her judo background and everything she did even before she got into the UFC when it comes to MMA, and she's had a lot of adversity along the way, similar to Merab. You build these unconquerable spirits, and Kayla is certainly one of those. And she looked massive in the cage that night, and hit a Kimura with ease against Pena, who knows her way around the mat. She is no slouch on the mat, but Kayla is just that good, that powerful, and made it look that easy. Her ability to control and take the fight where she wants it is very, very unique, man. And I think Kayla's going to hold on to that belt for a little while. But I mean, we just had that announcement of Nunes wanting to come back, which was crazy. But I'm so impressed with Kayla, man. She's amazing.
Absolute beast, John.
Ray, what do you have for us on Kayla Harrison?
No, absolute beast. And I really like Kayla Harrison. I like the way she conducts herself. Her fucking backstory is amazing.
Oh my gosh.
What she did with those kids. I mean, this is a really good human being who, man, you have to be happy for Kayla Harrison. She's just she's a breath of fresh air. You know what I mean? When you talk to her, she's a normal person who's an animal, when the octagon door closes, and that's the beauty. She doesn't walk around, like crazy, But when that door closes, man, she knows how to turn it on and turn it off when she walks out that door. That's one of the things I like about her. Every interaction I've ever had with her has been positive, and I feel the sincerity when I'm talking to her. No way! There he is, Merab.
Good morning, guys. Good morning.
Wait, Merab, did you go to sleep yet or no? I heard Brooklyn was crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. I finally went 3 hours sleep. I just wake up.
Oh my God.
Well, we're going to let you
Yeah.
get on with the rest of your day in about 10 minutes, but we are absolutely thrilled to have a few minutes with the still undisputed UFC bantamweight champion, the machine, Merab Dvalishvili. We love you, brother. Congratulations. We were saying before you came on, I can't think of a guy that I'm more happy to realize this success for than you, whether it comes to the MMA or the financial freedom. You are such a great ambassador for our sport, and I think you feel the love from your fellow fighters, but there's just a lot of love out there for you, and you deserve every bit of it, brother.
Thank you so much, John. I heard everything. Yeah, it's hard to realize I'm living in my dream now. It's been crazy, but I guess it's our reality now.
I tell you, this is the first time
Merab,
we see. Wait,
Ray,
Kenny. This is the first time we see Merab when he's not.
yeah.
His energy level isn't at a 12 out of 10.
Yeah.
I'm just glad to see he's actually human. Yeah, absolutely. Merab, Ray was talking about some of the adversity that you've experienced over the course of your career. I guess I'd be curious to know, like, what was the lowest point, when you were training here in the States? What was maybe your lowest point where maybe you had some doubts as to whether you'd ever be a champion in the UFC? Did those doubts happen, and when was that?
Thank you, Kenny. First of all, respect. Thank you guys for having me here. Yeah, it was. I think first when I moved here, in United States to stay, and it was in New York, and when I realized it was even hard to find the MMA gym and find the MMA fights, it was so challenging until I find the Ray Longo's gym here in Long Island, and. And then when I find it, I was so happy that it was the real people, like real MMA people. They have a cage. They have MMA coach, MMA people. 1 year, I was just doing hitting bags, and then I had 4 amateur fights and two amateur kickboxing. I cannot even have MMA fights when I moved here. Yeah, it was 2012.
I feel like we lost the audio. Can you hear him?
No, I can't hear him.
Yeah. I wonder if a call is trying to come in or something.
Merab, I think you might be muted. We'll try to reconnect. So it's amazing to see the champion after the fact. Right?
But John, just think of this too in hindsight. Like when he walks in the gym, you got Iaquinta, you got Weidman, you got Aljo. There was a time when we had, when we were all together, and they did their jujitsu with Sarah. We had a really good system put in place, and it wasn't going to be easy. If you went to Sarah's, you were probably going to get submitted 10 times. He had great black belts on the mat. You came to this gym, you're probably going to get beat up a little bit. So
that's okay, champ.
Yeah, that's all good.
Yeah, so when I start training with Sarah Longo team, I lost my first fight, and it was hard, but I know that it's okay. Like it's okay, one loss, no problem. And then next one I win, and I lost again, and that's where I realized that maybe I'm not good enough to continue MMA, and that was like
Wow.
it was hard. Like I was 1-2 as a professional. and it was hard to believe yourself. And I was totally thinking to like quit MMA, just not worth it anymore. But thank God, I take some time off. But thank God, in this time when I take off, I realize I miss MMA, and that time I tell myself, I don't care if I lose. I don't care if I'm not making money from MMA, and I actually spending money in MMA to stay. You know, I
Yeah,
love
right.
this sport. I want to continue. I don't care win or loss. I just want to keep doing this much as my body can do it. And then I came back after, and I win 6 straight, and magic happened. I go UFC.
Well, a
Yeah,
lot
I
of us
look,
believe you're 15-0
yeah,
in the
yeah,
UFC, the undisputed UFC bantamweight
yes,
champion,
bro.
Merab Dvalishvili. So when you went back to Georgia after you beat Sean the first time, or maybe after you beat Umar, the reaction was unbelievable. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like when you go back to Georgia again. Are you going to go back there now before you defend the belt against Corey Sandhagen? What is the rest of the year going to be like?
Yes, I actually have a ticket already to Georgia. I'm going tomorrow
Oh,
to
wow.
straight to Georgia.